Greetings, Earthlings, here from the year 3000. My name is Hannelie Venucia, and I'm from the Possibility Gap and the Joy Generation. Thank you for joining us here in this way, where we share 5 things I learned from writing futuristic novels about memories of the future. So the intention is to sit back and relax and to join me on a quick journey into your distant past, to the year 2011. What happened in your life at the time? Where were you? Who was mostly with you? What were you doing? What type of experiences did you have? Did you have any aha moments? Now, at that time, could you have imagined what transpired in the world on this beautiful planet called Earth in 2020? No, I most certainly didn't. It wasn't part of my radar at all. But imagine what would have been possible if you had insight into that, if you could access future memories, so that you could respond in a different way to what happened in the world, not only on a personal level, but also on a relational and organizational level. Imagine that. Would that have been helpful? Now, in that year, something else happened to me. I was writing a futuristic novel, starting in the future, working its way back to the present moment in 2011. And I was dreaming the narrative. So I'd wake up in the magic hours of the day between 3 and 5 in the morning, and I'd write down what I dreamt. And then something interesting happened. Around the timeline 2040 in that narrative, in that reality. Something that shocked me, that I simply blocked the rest of the narrative at that time. I couldn't process or digest what I dreamt. I couldn't deal with it in my present moment awareness as Hannelie in 2011. Even though that future where the book started was most beautiful, most exquisite to say the least, almost hard to explain and even to translate into words. Yet this incident in 2040 just rocked me to my core. But I discovered something afterwards. There was a difference. I was invested in that future. Now you may say, but we are all invested in the future, right? But I'll explain why this is different when we tap into future memory, so to speak. One of the characters, their stories were around something that happened to me, so I was part of that narrative. So on a personal level, I couldn't deal with it. Yet there is a way for us to tap into future memories without going into that state of shock that I was. Our ability to start on a blank page, because that's how we write a novel, right? No matter the genre. We begin the story on a blank page. We get this idea, a stream of consciousness, like any idea does. So it's nothing new to all of us. Any idea do that. Any aha moment, any insight comes to us in the same way. It's nothing new to us. All inventions entered our awareness in that way. And for that, we need to be open and receptive and available. So we need to be able to stand back, to be able to explore these other future instances, these possibilities, so to speak. And maybe a future instance is a better phrase than future memory, because we have access to so many in this vast field of infinite possibilities. The collective intelligence and wisdom, the unified field, the quantum field, the Akashic records, however you refer to it. That we could tap into that we can be available for that to be a clear and pure conduit and channel for that intelligence to come through into the world. And on that level, it's still energy. It's not form or matter yet. And only later do we give it applied meaning and purpose to it, so that it's relevant for us in the current present moment awareness that we have and our environment. Otherwise, it won't be relevant anymore. But on that level, there is no competition. There is no need for any restriction or limitations or stereotyping or the need to defend ourselves or to justify or to prove ourselves to explain. It's not necessary on that level. There, the language of energy rules, and that's a universal language because it goes beyond everything that we identify with and as, anything that we have an investment here in the current physical reality, any filters, lenses that we see through, outlooks on life that will be outdated in the future because we perceive the future in very different ways. Do you still perceive the world the same way you did when you were 10 years old? Most definitely not. You acquired so much knowledge and experiences, and so much happened in the world, a lot of that we couldn't control or manipulate. So when we begin to take a step backwards, we're not able to perceive more, which is our biggest tool, our tool of perception and expanded awareness, and to be able to step into altered states of consciousness so that we can access through our imagination and our intuition, our superconsciousness, which is that realm that I'm speaking about. It's the invisible realm. It's unseen, and there we play with our unseen senses. We have a lot more than our 5 physical senses. We simply don't have names for them. We use them every single day, but we are fearful of them. Why? Because of that unseen, unfamiliar, unknown, which simply means in the next moment it will be seen, right? The next moment is the future. Then it's seen, then it's experienced through our senses. Now, in that unseen world, the playing field is open. So the stuff that limits us here on Earth is not even relevant there. And then we can tap into those timelines. And that's what we do when we write futuristic novels. We tap into another world, into another dimension, another reality, and we bring in that intelligence here into the physical form in the present moment. So our ability then to step back, that we don't impact what we bring in from that realm with our biases, our prejudices, our conditioning, our programming, and the likes. So that's one of the key things that I discovered from writing futuristic novels, is that ability to start on a blank page when we explore future possibilities. But you see, there's a dilemma we have. We are so conditioned to think of time as linear, past, present, future. Now, yes, the past will impact the future, most definitely, if we continue the pattern or the trend. But we have the choice. The power of choice is the other thing that I discovered. The power of choice, that we could change direction completely and change our minds and go on a very different journey. And we do that all the time, by the way. Our life does not stay the same since the moment we're born till we leave from this plane. So many different things happen. And yet we have that ability to have that power of choice to tap into a future possibility, another future instance, and to change our minds and to change the direction. So we have that ability. And once we've done that, we can now experiment with it. We can bring it into form. So it's energy, matter, form, and meaning and purpose. And experiment with it and integrate it into our lives and see what works. And I always say, take the good and leave the rest. But this dilemma we have of being hitched to the past is a dilemma. Why? Because we speak in our world all the time about problem solving, or fixing our problems, our various dilemmas. That keeps us hooked to the past because it originated in the past. And we cannot focus on two things at the same time. We cannot focus on that problem and other possibilities at the same time. So we have to choose. And it's a wiser choice to explore other possibilities, to tap into future instances and experiment with them before we bring them into being, so that we can transform whatever the situation is that we don't desire anymore. But we need to then let go of the past, all those stories, and be identified with them. Then we bring in all that other stuff I spoke about, like unintegrated psychological materials, emotional and behavioral patterns, limited mindsets, outdated frames of reference, which is no longer relevant. Let me give you a simple example. My dad passed when I was 17, way before the internet. Imagine him coming back to Earth today. He would have been completely shocked. He wouldn't even conceptualize how we can communicate in this way that we do right now. Because it wasn't part of his world. His frame of reference didn't include it. So he will most probably definitely be shocked. And hence, us tapping into this realm of this invisible realm that innovative leaders tap into, says Karen Buckley and Joan Staffy. And I totally agree with them from our experience working with people and leaders and innovators and the likes, is that they live in this invisible realm. They act from there in a subjective way that they look at organizations and situations. And in that invisible unconscious realm, they have the ability to foresee impending chaos. And then they can act to transform that chaos into creativity. And for that, we need to let go of the physical reality here, that we can explore those other possibilities and tap into those future instances. And they also then have the ability to support the undefinable. It's undefinable at that level. There's no definition on that level, classification. That realm of that shift that needs to take place in terms of the way we think or thought, that's needed for transformative action to take place. Because somebody must hold that new paradigm, that new way of thinking, that new way of being, that new way of working together, of relating together, of treating each other in a different way, have to hold it together in some way so that others can begin to catch on, especially those who have been conditioned to believe in a specific way. So that we can stay relevant, that we can make more inclusive decisions. When we tap into that realm, we have the ability to tap into our holographic thinking abilities. What does that mean? Because in that realm, it's not linear. And holographic thinking allows us to be able to perceive different perspectives all at once. And why is that needed? So that we can make more inclusive decisions, more aware decisions of the impact we have on each other and our beautiful planet. But that all is catered for. It's not an either or reality, it's a both and reality. The other thing that helps us in that realm, when we access that realm, is our ability to conceptualize. Now, in our creative intelligence and creative thinking workshops, many people tell us that they can't even visualize what you ask them to visualize. They say they can't use their imagination anymore. Why? We've become lazy. We don't have to think for ourselves, to engage our imagination anymore, because everything is right in front of us in our visual world. Yet, humans are fascinated by the world of mystery. We love that world, all of us. Why are the top-selling books fantasy, science fiction, and mystery, for example? And the TV shows that we watch and the movies, and online gaming, those worlds that people love to venture in, because they know there's more. And in that infinite, unified field, there is more to discover. And it's not linked to the past. So that ability to stand back from it, to be able to be open and receptive. And to conceptualize other realities, other possibilities, which is not impacted by that until that moment how we thought. So the way of thinking that we are used to, that we've been conditioned to believe, for example, as well. And the other thing that it helps us do is, once we bring in that energy, that intelligence into the physical realm, into form, we now weave it together in a narrative. That's what's happening with when we write novels. That stream of consciousness enters us, and it takes on its own life in physical form, in the story, in the narrative. I cannot control and manipulate it. It will not be the same. It has its own life force like any idea too. But we have the ability to contextualize it. And to context management in our current world is most important in this digital hybrid world that we live. In this conceptual age that we live of AR and VR and the metaverse and artificial intelligence. Because somebody must conceptualize whatever we are inventing, whatever we are creating. and then to give it context that has meaning and purpose in the current moment. That helps us to stay relevant as well. That we so often hear of these incredible organizations with long histories that were not able to stay relevant. They were not able to stay attuned to the changes of times. And this relationship we have with time completely transforms us, that it helps us to prioritize in a different way when we tap into future instances and future memories. So again, it goes back to choices, right? And to decisions, decision making. But it helps us to set the tone for the future to come when we tap into those future memories. Many people did that. Many inventors did that. They were able to tap into future instance and to bring it into being. But we need a safe space, embryonic space for it to gestate and to incubate, to come into being before we share it with the wider world. While we're experimenting with it, it's like a seed in the soil. It's dark down there, we can't see it yet, but it gestates there, and then it shoots through to the sun and it begins its growth process so that it can bear fruit and flowers and the likes. And the same happens in that world. When we tap into those future instances, we need a safe embryonic environment where we can soundboard it against other people, where it can incubate. And we have exactly that at the Possibility Gap, a possibility accelerator and a lifestyle incubator. So the accelerator is on organizational level and the incubator is on more on a personal level, the individual level. But we need both because we need to be able to think differently in the future, especially if we want to weave together a different future where all can thrive. But it's setting the tone and then the ability to be ready to respond whatever is happening so that we can tap into these different futures and future selves, future of work, future of humanity, the future of our beautiful planet, leadership, education, technology, you name it, the future of your own life, the future of your relationships, the future of your health, your future self, the future of your business, your organization, the ability to tap into that and to set the tone for the years to come. Now that to us is leadership and being innovated. But the innovation is not just from a product point of view or a services point of view, it's on an individual human level too, because we access the super consciousness that we don't usually access in normal life, in our conscious awareness, that invisible space that the innovative leaders access. Now, as a young girl, I was fascinated by Jules Verne. I read all his books. And then to discover many, many years later that he had future memories, so to speak. And you can decide this for yourself. But I resonate with that deeply, that he did have future memories. Why? The first moonshot in his book From Earth to Moon took place from Florida. Isn't that fascinating? And there were so many similarities between the Apollo and his projectile. And likewise, even though it was 150 years later, the US atomic sub had similar dimensions than that of his Nautilus. You can decide that for yourself. For me, the coincidence is just too much, the synchronicity. And we get those every single day, whether we are aware of it or not. But we discard them, we don't trust it. These epiphanies, these aha moments, these ideas, these insights come into our awareness and we ignore them. Now, through the years, we've designed this incredible process. It's actually developed, it just emerged, and we started using it for the last 11 years every single day as part of our creative processes on an individual level. And you can do it on an organizational level or a team level too. And simply reference points from the future, these insights. They make no sense in the present moment. We don't try to give them meaning and purpose. We just note them down. And we've got an app that actually follows the track of the flow of what happens there and all the connections between the different reference points that comes through. And let me give you an example. A few weeks back, in my creative process in the morning, I wrote down the word buffalo, came into my awareness. Now, at that time, it had no meaning or purpose for me. And I immediately thought it was about the animal, but I just let it go. I just noted it down. And literally 2 days later, I became aware of what happened in Buffalo, the shooting incident in the USA. Now you may ask, why then, if we can't apply meaning and purpose to it, do we receive this information? Now my experience also through writing these novels, it opens us up to that invisible realm, to the liminal spaces, that we can co-create them together, that we can access them, so we become attuned to them, so they are not strange, especially by doing it then with intention, where we want to tap into a future instance with intention and to begin to experiment with it. But it also gives us the ability, this biggest tool we had of our perception, to expand that and to access these altered states of consciousness in everyday life. So we don't have to go and take specific plant medicine and the likes. As we're sitting here, we can go into that space right now, me and you. And if you want to practice that state, the last Friday of every month, 4 o'clock Amsterdam time, we come together in our ACE sessions, which means ask us anything, celebrate the last month until that moment, and energize your goals, intentions, and the likes and objectives for the month coming. And as part of those happy hours, so to speak, we begin it with a liminal space experience, where we go into a liminal space experience, just so that we can exercise these muscles. And you're most welcome to join us every month. It's the last Friday of every month. And if you are curious about this language of energy, these unseen senses that we tap into, you're also most welcome to connect with us. And if you want to set the tone for the future in whatever way, you're also welcome to join our Setting the Tone Leadership Intelligence online retreat, where we play in this realm and where we enact creative thinking to create context and critical thinking with meaning and purpose in a practical way. So we bring the unseen and seen realms together, so to speak, in many different ways. We explore it on 8 different dimensions. The way we think, the way we relate, the way we work together, the way we collaborate together and co-create, the way we contribute to the world and our impact, the way we manifest, for example. So there are 8 dimensions like that we play in on that leadership intelligence retreat. And that begins the end of July. You're also most welcome to connect with us if you're curious about that. And then you most probably also love our most recent podcast that will soon be available on Spotify and Google Podcasts, which is called Untamed, the Time of Our Lives. As when we tap into this invisible realm, into future instances, into future memories, our perception, our relationship with time change completely. And we have access to so much more. And even Tesla said that once science begin to explore and experiment with these unseen phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than all of its existence. And we truly resonate with that too. We truly resonate with that too. So there are so much that I actually learned through writing these novels, because it opened me up to this realm and to tap into those unseen energetic senses and to create these liminal spaces for others, that they can experiment and experience this realm without any fear. And in that realm, there's no fear, lack, or want, or need for that matter. Everything is possible in that unified field of collective wisdom and collective intelligence available to us. And don't confuse mass consciousness with collective intelligence. It's not the same. That's why we take that step back. We disconnect and detach from astral gravity. What does that mean? The thought forms that are here in our world, in this sphere, we disconnect from that completely. So we can become that open conduit to connect. And we can do that with intention or simply spontaneously to see what comes. And there's nothing weird about it. So thank you for being with me. I love this topic. I love writing futuristic novels. I love tapping into different timelines to do quantum jumping, for example, and to connect to different realities. And I truly know and believe through all our experience working with people in this regard is that we all have a unique way of perceiving whatever we experience in that realm and that ability to interpret it and translate it, that we can bring it back into the physical form with meaning and purpose, and that can be practically applied. So thank you for being with me. Next week, I'll be sharing 5 things I learned from commodity trading about the flow of energy and change. Have a wonderful week and take time to step out of the time-space continuum that you've been conditioned to believe in. Just for a while every day. Sit in the garden. Lull. It's one of the other practices that we use in sense making. Simply lull. Like you're a lizard or a rock rabbit and you're just sitting there. No thoughts. Daydream also opens us up to that realm. And have loads of fun. Goodbye.